Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about the 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, and health freedom. So today is going to be talking all about finances, maintaining your financial health, and getting to financially independence and financially free. So today we have Claire Hunsaker, and she is a financial advisor and expert, and she's also a women's advocate, which will be of interest to the audience. She get her MBA from Stanford, and now she's independent, and we're going to talk all about wealth planning, financial security, and go from there. So Claire, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Christopher.
Yeah, I know we had connected on Podmatch, and like I said, I'm always interested in the outside view. So tell us how you got started, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I have a long career in business. I actually spent 15 years in high growth startups in Silicon Valley. And, although I love selling security software, it was not my dream. And I made my nut. And then I figured out, I have enough of a financial footing to kind of do whatever I want. What do I want to do? And I view financial independence not as lying on the beach drinking Mai Tais, although that sounds exceptional. I view it as being able to use my time, which is my most valuable asset, in the ways that I want. And so for me, that means spending time with my very young family. I was an IVF mom and I'm currently 8 months pregnant in my mid-40s. So family is super important to me at this phase of my life. But also I was raised by a single mom. And so I know very up close and personal how important it is for women to have access to, tailored financial information. Not everything is the right advice for everyone. We have slightly different situations. So I focus through a business called Ask Flossie on providing financial advice and financial planning pro bono to single women and single moms. I also am part of a high net worth household. So I do all of our financial planning as well as pro bono financial planning for a number of individuals. I love what I do. I went and did all the education and training and passed all the horrific tests to become a certified financial planner. I'm currently a chartered financial consultant. And I'm approved to do taxes through the IRS VITA program with an advanced certification. So I'm a tax nerd. I also, just one important note, I'll probably talk a little bit about insurance. I don't sell insurance. And I think it's very important for people to know when someone is selling insurance, because the commissions can be very high for certain products. I don't sell anything. So I am very interested more in the math and how it can impact a financial plan.
Yeah. And so we'll go into kind of the big idea topics. So one is we talk about what's going on with the economy and inflation right now. What can people do? Sounds like it's like, I have clients just like, their fear of loss is much greater than their fear of gain. So tell us, what do you think?
It's an interesting time. I think for those of us who have been in the market for 20 or 30 years, it's this is not the first time we've seen this kind of or this magnitude of lunacy. It is certainly the first time we've seen this kind of this like brand of crazy stuff in the economy since the 70s, since in 40 years. Excuse me. But there is this is a really good testing ground. This kind of time is why we have financial plans. This is why we do not take the short-term view, because if you have a financial plan, you're looking at right now going, I planned for this. The market does this. The market does this on average every 6.5 years. It might not do it for the same reasons. It might not do it in exactly the same way. But it is baked in and is actually becoming, in our lifetimes, in our investing lifetimes, much more frequent. So it's really important to, frankly, just like lose your login and look away. Keep investing, just look away. Like one of my clients came to me and was like, I feel really bad because I've like lost my login and haven't done anything in 2 years. I was like, I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for not. I mean, the Wall Street Journal yesterday had an article on how it's been one of the worst years to buy a dip. And, frankly, one of the best things, the most powerful thing in investing is time. And so being able to just look away and write it out is great. Not everybody's in a position to do that. It's terrifying. I think that we will continue to see a lot of choppiness, a lot of scary news headlines until 2024. So, and I've been saying that since, May and April and May. And it's not news, right? There's only one way out of this recession and this inflation, and it's through higher interest rates. So it's a good time to focus on managing your spending very carefully, building that muscle, thinking about it in a positive way in your life rather than as like a scarcity mindset. And I think it's also a really great time to just clobber as much of your variable interest rate debt as possible. It is the Chairman Powell has shown that he is not afraid of raising interest rates, which is great. It will help ride our economy. And that means that credit card debt's going to get real expensive real fast. And I think it already has for many people. Similarly, adjustable rate mortgages. So it is not the time to be focused on that mortgage you want to take out or the mortgage you had taken out that's at a fixed rate. It is the time to be focused on your credit card, your personal loans, your other stuff that's variable.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, it's definitely interesting times, and you talk to one person, they have this view, and so it's really good to take a look at everything from what's interesting is that because you mentioned that the times really, it's like we're going to experience more recessions, market crashes. So I like this idea of growing income with side hustles and promotions. Tell us.
I do too. I think that there's a thing that we often forget about when we're pursuing financial independence, which is that our income is like this fixed number and that we can only work below that line to reduce our spending. And that's frankly just not true. Like the most wealthy people we can think of have many income streams. And you don't build all of those income streams simultaneously overnight, particularly if you are working doctor's hours, or if you have a family. But in our life, we have built them over 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, and I think that it's important to find additional income streams that really matter or that really work for your lifestyle, right? So I hired a young woman years ago who had a $20,000 Etsy business selling stickers that she made like after work. And 20 grand a year on a small business tax basis is excellent. It's really, really great. You can do a lot with that money. You can clobber a lot of student loans. You can put away, you could save for a down payment in, a handful of years as a young person. So I think that we try to think of like, oh, what's my great big side hustle? What's your sticker shop? Your sticker shop, like what is gonna move the needle a little bit, and then you can grow into those things. So I firmly believe that, and I also believe that for some people, this was true for me in my career. Pursuing a promotion path and pursuing an aggressive increase in earnings is also a valid way to spend time. It's going to differ for different people based on what their day job looks like, right? Not everybody has upward mobility in their salary at work, but if you do and it's substantial, that's maybe a better thing to than your Etsy side hustle or whatever it is you decide to do in your spare time.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, especially if you have one income stream that's let's say 200 300K, and it gets wiped out because of a pandemic or something.
Right.
It's better to have like 10 income streams providing 20 30K So it's a little bit more safer.
Absolutely. It's portfolio risk. It's don't put all your eggs in one basket, but it's also like, it gives you an opportunity. I think one of the things that people forget is that like, if you lose any one income stream, it is much harder to replace that income stream starting from scratch than it is to just kind of goose up 3 other existing income streams. And so I've seen this in everything from consulting to online businesses, to product businesses, to real estate. There's a different flavor for everybody. Not everything is the right fit for everyone, but I think you're right. It's all about reducing risk, and reducing risk is a huge, huge piece of financial independence.
Yeah. The other question is how to prevent a personal financial crisis.
Oh, I mean, look away. But I think that one of the things, and this is kind of why I gave my disclaimer about insurance, is that I think that one of the things that people really underestimate, and it's particularly important in careers that have specialty training, like medical professionals, is insurance. Because during your earning years, you need to count on not just the time that your wealth will grow and creating opportunities for your wealth to grow over many decades, but you also need to generate wealth. And if you lose your ability to do that, either because you die or because you become disabled, which is actually more likely for women. Women are more likely to become disabled, not because of pregnancy or anything related to our lady plumbing, but because of things like rheumatoid arthritis, which we have a higher predilection for, and certain cancers. So it tends to be things like sickness, which you don't see coming, heart disease as well. So disability insurance is really important during the earning years. There are specialty lines for medical doctors, which I'm sure you have heard about from other guests. But I think having a little bit of protection in terms of really doing the math on your disability is important. You can usually insure up to about 70%. And the devil on disability policies is in the details. So you kind of have to sit down and think, what does this cover? Does this cover enough? And what will I do? And do I need to supplement? It can be a little bit expensive, but for high earners who also have high mortgages or who are paying off high student loan debts, disability doesn't always go away. Disability does not magically make that debt go away. And so it can be very important to protect your ability to stay in your home, your ability to maintain your ability to maintain your credit, because you don't want to have to declare bankruptcy. And I also think life insurance is very important, and specifically, unless you are Beyonce rich, term life insurance. I think there are a few vehicles for people who are later in their careers, who have, more than $22 million as a household, as a married household right now, where universal life might make sense from a like estate tax prevention policy. That's kind of it. And you have to have a lot of money to make that worthwhile. And that's typically done with like a lawyer and a financial planner and the people you've got engaged to deal with $22 million of an estate. But for the rest of us, even for very high net worth individuals, a little bit of term is great. I was just having a conversation with someone this morning who'd asked me, we have investments, and we had always thought of that as the like wealth that we would pass on to our kids if we died. And I was like, that's great. But if you died in 2008, you might not want to like fire sale those right away. You might want to have enough term to cover like a couple of years so that the executor or the kids themselves can make that decision and protect the wealth. But I also think that like one of the biggest pieces that people miss is the emergency fund. So I know I've been harping on this one for like 5 minutes, but I do think financial security fundamentally comes down to when you take a hit, you can absorb the hit. And the emergency fund is what allows you to do that. So there's this myth that it's like you need 3 to 6 months. Well, it takes on average, particularly for women, 4.5 months to find a new job. And then it takes you another month to get paid. So you need 6 months, and you need to be able to protect things like your medical insurance, or your mortgage payments, or all of these, and particularly your childcare, which is, for a lot of families, the number one or number two line item in their expenses. So, we think, oh, I'm not working, childcare will go away. Well, I have a toddler running around downstairs, and I can tell you, you can't interview with a screeching kid. I mean, I know that there's occasionally TikTokers who do it, but no. And so protecting that income is, or protecting your ability to manage transitions like that, or medical crises, which happen. Young people do get cancer. Young people do get into car accidents. They can be devastating, and they can devastate your ability to gain income.
Yeah. Yeah, these are all really interesting. And I know we're coming towards the end of this, and especially you work with females, and especially so tell us, I guess, females, especially financial security and divorce, and what should they, how do they set financial goals differently?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of features. So one, harkening back to disability, women are more likely to become disabled during their working years. And so it's very important to have that insurance and make sure that insurance is going to work for you. Also, women are less likely to collect on Social Security. They're less likely to have access to qualified retirement funds, because they make different decisions throughout their careers with regard to supporting family, and because sometimes those decisions are foisted upon them. 80% of women, or 80% of single parents, are female, and 70% of them do not see child support. So it's really important for women, as they look over the arc of their lives, to think about protecting downside risk more aggressively than a guy would, because they're more likely to be the sole holder of dependents, whether that's their parents or their kids. They're more likely to become disabled, and they're more likely to have lower incomes and fewer savings opportunities. So you have to take everything that's like standard financial advice and kind of oomph it. And then, you really, really, if you ever go through a divorce, have to replan very carefully, because it is a major financial risk for women.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very fascinating discussion about, troubling times and economic uncertainty, risk, and hedging with insurance and proper planning. How can people find you, follow you, connect with you?
Sure. I'm at Ask Flossie. I blog pretty aggressively on these topics. I'm Ask Flossie on Instagram, where I'm pretty active. And I'm Claire at Ask Flossie. If anybody ever has a question, I'm always happy to hear from people. I take a lot of random calls. I will say that the one thing I want to flag is that open enrollment is coming up very soon. So we want to make sure that everybody's looking really carefully at the math, because the best place to get benefits, if you are employed in a 9 to 5, is through your employer. They get rates that the rest of us do not have access to.
Yeah. And for the audience out there, Claire's resources will be in the links in the show notes. It's Ask Flossie, like the floss, and .com. And thanks so much for coming onto the show, and we look forward to hearing about your future success.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Christopher.